Children's Hospital Foundation, the Cameron K. Gallagher Foundation, Jacob's Chance, Trinity
Over
Hospital,
40,000 minutes of broadcast time donated.
Beyond Boundaries, the Virginia Down Syndrome Association,
Nonprofits telling their story, maximizing their impact.
Richmond Region Tourism, the Chesterfield Chamber of
Creating
Commerce,
partnerships that make a difference.
Henrico Office of Economic Development,
Mike King Biz, the social enterprise brand,
Girls for Change,
on a mission. Mike King Biz.
Hi, this is Sylvia Barbstein, and I am on the air with Mike King. He is widening the lens of humanity, and I'm so happy to be a part of his journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Mic. It's Mike King here. This is part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. That is ESPN Richmond 106.1, International Business Coach Radio, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern, as well as the Hounds of Business. We are a social enterprise show. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. So you can follow me on all the social platforms, which is Mike King Biz, as well as On the Mic with Mike RVA. Hey, so I've been around Richmond about 10 years now. When I first got here, I would always hear about this group called the Doorways. And then I was working with the Ronald McDonald House and started to hear about the Doorways. I'm just a public servant. And so what I do, I talk to the Doorways. Madam, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
All righty, so tell folks who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'm Stacy Brinkley. I'm the president and CEO of the Doorways. And we are a nonprofit, a guest house for patients and families that have to travel to Richmond for specialized, often life-saving medical care.
So so you had said 40 years, correct?
40 years. It's our 40th anniversary.
Alrighty. As a CEO president, what does it take to be a visionary leader to set it up for the next iteration of 40 years?
Well, that's a great question. And I actually am standing on a very strong foundation of the original founders 40 years ago. The ladies auxiliary down at the hospital noticed that patients and families, well, really families, were sleeping in the waiting room because all of their family members were inpatient and they didn't have a place to go. They didn't have money to stay in a hotel. They wanted to be close to their loved one. And so they started and figured out this whole concept. It was just getting started at the time of a guest house, a hospitality house. So they started us 40 years ago. We were in an old brownstone close to the hospital, 17 beds, dormitory style, always full. And then medicine started to change, and a lot of medical care was really then delivered on an outpatient basis, not always inpatient. So now you have not only the family members, but the patients themselves that need a place to stay. So about 30 years ago, as they were looking to expand, they looked into the old Days Inn, which was in bankruptcy and going to be up for auction for sale on the steps of the courthouse. So these intrepid women bid $1 million, bought the place, and then slowly started renovating it. So we have been at 7th and Marshall, again in the old Days Inn, for 30 years. And now we're really looking at some point for a newer building. The building was built in the early 60s. So about a 50-year optimal lifespan. We're definitely over 60. So I think going forward, the next big thing for us will be a different building, better suited to our patients, our guests for the next 40 years.
Does it have to be downtown when you start looking for a location?
Ideally, yes. About 90% of our patients are going to VCU Health. Okay. But we also serve the VA hospital, Shelter in Arms, several smaller organizations. So ideally, yes. It would, again, the best thing would be, it's close to the campus as possible so they could walk. Currently, we're about 5 blocks away, and we have a shuttle that delivers people, those that can't walk. Again, a lot of people love the five block walk, especially on a beautiful day. But if you're the patient and undergoing treatment, you may not be able to, accommodate that.
So, Stacy is here, Mike King. This is ESPN Richmond 106.1. How long have you been in the nonprofit world?
So actually, I have been, I started my career in nonprofits and I'm ending my career in nonprofits. I have been at the Doorways for 10 years this past January, which is amazing. And prior to that, I had about a 30-year career in corporate America. I started way back out of college at the American Red Cross as an assistant branch administrator. as my very first job, and then went to business school, did the corporate thing. And then when I was sort of winding that down, I'm like, I really was ready to make a difference, and not just be worried about the bottom line. Although even
You're
in
worried about the
nonprofit-
bottom line.
I was gonna say,
But still, we had that conversation. What is it that draw to people to the nonprofit world?
I think you still have to run it like a business. You still have revenue and expenses. It all has to balance out. But you get to, it's really your mission, and what draws you to nonprofits is the mission. And you, especially at the doorways, you get to see your mission every day. And it really gives you purpose. You could be having a bad day, something could go wrong, a pipe could leak, or something could, go wrong. But when you see the guests that you're helping, and especially at the doorways, we have a lot of long-term guests, not just 1 and 2 nighters, but people that could be there for months. And they get to know the staff. The staff
They
gets
become
to know them.
family.
They become family, and they become family with each other. That is what's so special. It's really not just lodging and amenities that we support or that we provide. It's really the community. And those guests, they're all, going through something different. And we welcome all walks of life. We only ask for a donation of $15 a night, which can add up if you're there 6 months or a
Better
year,
believe it.
right? Yep. So, a lot of, it's really a donation. If you can pay, great. If you can't. So we have all walks of life there, people that can afford, people that can't. But if you are 2 people going through a liver transplant together, you become family. And we have a great dining room. We have community groups that come in and make dinner, and guests come down and eat. And no matter how many times you separate the tables, here's 4, here's a 2 top, here's whatever, invariably the next
They're all
day,
gonna come back.
they're all pushed back together because they all want to eat together and they get to know each other.
How can people get information out about the doorways?
So we have a great website, obviously, www.thedoorways.org. It's a brand new website, so it's all there. And if you want to volunteer, if you want to donate, we are, open 24/7, 365. We're a small but mighty staff. We rely heavily on volunteers.
Okay. So how big is your staff?
So we have 35 total, 23 full-time and 12 part-time.
Okay. So let's talk about the volunteers.
Mhm.
To do the things that you do, you don't pull that off with a staff of that many.
Yeah.
You have a lot of people who are committed to you for what you do. Let's talk about, and you said it is National Volunteer. I didn't know.
April is National Volunteer Appreciation Month, and we could not do what we do with.
Okay, hold on, ladies and gentlemen. This is for the volunteers. See, we spare no expenses around here, but what we do, that's 5 and below. That's what that is. But the idea of it is they help you do the mission.
Deliver the mission.
So when people come in, you see them at a very bad time.
Could be very vulnerable. Yes.
It's very vulnerable. And then they stay and they stick around and they see the magic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about when that light comes on, that you see them and it's like, hey, there may be some sunshine at the end of this.
Absolutely. And, I think as they're going through it, as they see progress in their own care, or they see progress in their fellow guests' care and recovery and healing, obviously that is helpful to them. They get to know our staff gets to know them. They need a hug. There's always someone, to give a hug, get a hug. It really just is a special place. It doesn't matter if you're a regular volunteer or you're, one of our maintenance folks, one of our housekeeping staff, our front desk staff, the admin team. It really is just a special place. As I mentioned, the volunteers really help make it happen. We do not have a restaurant, for example, but what we do have is donated food through Feed More and direct store pickup, Publix, Kroger, Fresh Market. So we get all this fabulous food that a guest could, at the end of the day, come home and make dinner. But who wants to worry about what's for dinner at 6 o'clock after being all day at the hospital? So we have fabulous volunteer groups, companies, churches, just families that will come in and make dinner and serve it in our dining room. The pool table doubles as the buffet table. And so it really is, again, that's where we say the dining room is where the magic happens.
It's funny. So when we moved to, so me and my wife, we were in the Army, so we went to Germany. And the first 30 days we lived in a hotel downtown. And then we moved into a big it wasn't even an apartment, it was like a hotel. They
Mhm.
called it the Lagerhof. And there was a kitchen there, and there was a big community dining room. And even though we had a baby, our baby came after we had been there for 6 months. We lived there for a year.
Mhm.
And even though sometimes people did take food back to your room and stuff like that, that's where the magic happened. You saw people, you remember when people came, remember how that felt.
Mhm.
And then you remember how people left. When you left, you're like, oh well, one day that's gonna be me. So when people come into the doorways, they come there, it's a tough time. They don't know how this thing works,
Right.
and then they become one of the
Yeah, one of the pros, one of the experts.
and then they start to see and they start explaining to people what's the average stay for people with you guys.
That's a great question. The average stay really is about 6 to 7 nights. However, we have a lot of 1 and 2-nighters that are here just for checkups or pre-appointments. And then about half of our rooms, 45 to 50% of our rooms at any one time, have a guest, a patient that has been there at least a month. So we have guests that are there 6 months, 9 months, sometimes a year. If you're at the top of the transplant list and you don't live nearby, you have to come, and while you're waiting, because you get that call for the organ, you need to be there. If you're going through cancer treatment or you're a stem cell patient and have a stem cell transplant, you could be there for 6 to 9 months, because while there's a portion of your treatment that you're inpatient, but then after that, there's several months, many months where you need to be at the clinic every day. And if you live in Lynchburg or Bristol or Roanoke, or Northern Virginia, we really serve across, really every county from Virginia has been to the doorways. All 50 states we have served, and several international countries.
So you came through COVID. I know before that you guys were rocking and rolling, everything was good. You know, all right, it was tough, but you understood what it took. Then COVID showed up and didn't leave. What did you guys learn coming out of COVID that you never did before, that all of a sudden you're like, that thing worked?
Right.
What did okay, let's go back. Hold that question.
Okay.
And so I asked Carrie over at the Ronald McDonald House, and Greta was here as well. You guys had that some big changes when COVID happened.
Absolutely.
That what you're describing is not exactly a remedy, but we're going through a pandemic. Let's talk about what you had to do to make it through COVID, and then what you learned on the other side.
Yeah. So, typically we have 150 guests every night, because we serve 10,000 guests a year. I mean, we're a lot bigger than most people think, 60,000 nights of lodging every year. So to go from 150 plus or minus, fewer on the weekends, maybe more in the middle of the week, to COVID, where a lot of elective surgeries were canceled, treatments were canceled. But even still, we would have 50 to 60 people every night, isolating, still getting treatment. Our volunteer program obviously had to shut down. You couldn't leave your house. How could you leave to volunteer? Some of our staff worked remotely, but if you think about, we're 24/7, we're on site, and we have the most amazing team, from the front desk staff to the housekeepers to the maintenance team, the admin staff that needed to be there. So we had to do a lot of changes, as you might imagine, from cleaning and, filters and just much more of everything, if you will, separation, isolation. But what was really the steadiest thing throughout was the staff. They all showed up, they were dedicated to the mission, and they delivered on it every day. And it really just, again, the people that had to still be there were so appreciative. Again, if you're going through cancer treatment or a transplant, you can't stay home.
So what you learned coming out of that?
So
somebody asked you before, you would no, we can't do that thing. We ain't doing that.
Right.
And now all of a sudden we're on the other side of COVID.
Right. What I really learned, again, we've always had amazing team members, but what really hit home was how dedicated everyone is to the mission. Nobody said, I can't come in today, or I'm afraid to come in today. They were all there every day. So I always knew it was a great team, but it really showed how dedicated they are to the mission and to our guests. And the other thing that, really I think was special is, while we couldn't have volunteers in the building, we still had, people would, our Amazon wish list, or they would go in and, purchase things that could be delivered or donate things that could be delivered. We had to shift our meal program because, again, without volunteers, there were, several volunteer groups that would still figure out a way to either bring us frozen foods or order pizzas one night. Another organization, the Underground Kitchen, they pivoted their entire model.
Shout
They
out to
helped.
Michael Sparks and
Yes,
those guys.
yes. Shout out to Michael Sparks. They started making soups, and they were amazing. So just, it's incredible that when people want to give back, they figure out.
One of the things, so when I've worked and done some things with Parney, he says, when people come to him, and he says, we start at yes. We start at yes and figure out how we're going to make this thing work. So before that, I didn't realize it. You guys you're in the hospitality business.
We are, right? It's running a hotel and a nonprofit.
Okay. All righty. So what does the Doorways need? And because you guys are helping and supporting the community, what is it that you guys could use?
Well, of course, like every nonprofit, donations are key. Because we do not charge a fee, many other hospitality houses across the country, they charge a fee instead of ask for a donation. So it may be a discounted, rate for a hotel night. It might be $79 or whatever it could be.
But if you're saying $79 can
6 months,
yes,
adds up.
That
right?
can break you.
So we are always looking for donations, and you can obviously go to our website and donate. But in addition, in addition to money, in-kind donations are important to us. Again, we have an Amazon wish list. So those types of things are important. And then always volunteers. Again, as I mentioned, our food program is one of our biggest volunteer opportunities. You don't have to be a big company to do that or a church group. If small groups of friends can come, families come, prepare a meal, serve a meal. It's very rewarding. We're an old building, the corner of 7th and Marshall Street, an old motel type. So all of our walkways are external. So we're famous for our Windex parties, which doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
Okay, ma'am, exactly. It's a Windex.
Yeah.
Okay, what's that?
So at home, washing your windows is really no fun. At the Doorways, we have big, plate glass windows looking out to the city of Richmond that need to be cleaned. So groups will come, team building groups, what have you. We give them a lot of Windex and some big squeegees, and on a beautiful day, they have a lot of fun out there.
How often do you guys do that?
Other than the winter time, pretty often. Because,
you know what? Okay, I can handle that. So I got to get my crew. We can come down to the Doorways. All right, so I was in the Army. We used to have a GI party. This is first cousin to a GI party.
Yeah.
It's going out there, Windex and cleaning. Okay, that's it. All righty. So a couple quick questions. As the leader, how do you set the culture for a winning organization?
So great question. And, we are always looking to, improve our culture, build relationships, that camaraderie. Again, for a nonprofit, it's easier to do because of the mission and seeing your mission every day. I love Parney's idea of starting with
yes.
That's awesome. One of my sayings is always, sort of assume positive intent. Especially when people are stressed, they're not always at their best, whether you're a team member, whether you're a guest, whether, but to your point, just look beyond that and see how we can help.
How do we find the next generation of folks who are going to go to the nonprofit world to change the world?
Oh, that's a great question.
I got one per. That's it. We're closing out after that.
That's a good one. Well, it is amazing. Younger people today, they really are looking to help change the world. They really are looking to make a difference. And so we have several, younger team members right out of college, several years out of college. And it's not all about the money for them. It really is, how can I make a difference as well as earn my living? So I think we have to encourage that in our young people. I think the schools do a great job, both at the, high school level, gosh, even middle school, and certainly college level of asking their students to volunteer. We have school groups that will come in and volunteer, whether it's making care bags or whether, making get well cards for our guests. There's usually something anyone can do at sort of any level.
already one last time, how can people find information out about the doorways?
Yes, definitely. Go to our website, www.thedoorways.org. We need any and all help, and just tell our story. We say we're the best kept secret in Richmond, and we would prefer not to be.
That's right. People don't come here to keep secrets, not on the mic. Our idea is to make sure people understand and know who you are. We'd like to thank you for coming on the program. As I always say, hey, changing the world ain't cheap, easy, or free. Money got to change hands. So make sure you take care of our sponsors. This microphone ain't free. Plus, my grandkids need stuff because that Amazon truck just never keeps going.
Yeah.
It always stops. So make sure we'd like to thank you for tuning in.
Michael Mike. Stop the Michael Mike. My name is Isabella, and you're listening to My King Biz. Hubby, that's my scam.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to go. Take care now. Thanks. No. When it works, it works.
Thanks.